Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ingrained and Balanced podcast. I'm your co-host, Lonnie. I got Marty in the wings waiting to step in here and help me out here. Today, we are very fortunate. We've got an incredible guest who's got an incredible story to share and some knowledge to spread, and we can't wait to talk about it. So before I get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, okay? We all have our own journeys, right? So imagine you've already found success, right? You think you found success. You started your family, whatever it might be. You think you're successful. And then, you find out, you have an ailment, a disease, or maybe impossible, a terminal illness that's going to kind of derail you off path a little bit, right? It's about how do you let it derail you? Can you identify what's wrong and what pathway can you find to getting back on track? Our guest today, Terry Tucker, knows that struggle. He's been through it. I mean, he's still fighting his way through it, and he's using his experience to help others who face obstacles on their own paths. His story is more than inspirational. You'll gain so much from listening to this episode, so I can't wait to bring him in, okay? Let me give you a little background information on him. Terry has been an NCAA Division I college basketball player, a Citadel cadet, a marketing executive, a hospital administrator, and get this, a SWAT team hostage negotiator. He's also been a high school basketball coach, a business owner, a motivational speaker, and an author. And for the past 10 years, he's actually been a cancer warrior. I mean, incredible. It's even resulted in the amputation of his foot in 2018, and in 2020, his leg was amputated. I mean, it's amazing what he's had to face and get past in his life. So Terry's also the author of a book called Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life, and the developer of the Sustainable Excellence membership. I mean, amazing. Terry, with all due respect, I can't wait to talk to you. Everybody, this is Terry. Terry, thank you for joining us today. If you want to just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, and wow, what inspires you to you motivate people?
Well, Lonnie, Marty, thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to talking with you. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago. I am the oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from looking at me or from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall, and I played college basketball at the Citadel. I have a brother who's 6'7", who was a pitcher for the University of Notre Dame. Another brother who's 6'6", who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the National Basketball Association. And then my dad was 6'5". So I sort of joke that if you sat behind our family in church growing up, there wasn't a prayers chance you were going to see anything that was going on, in front. But our 5'8" mother was the boss. And, it didn't matter how big, tall, strong we were, whatever mom said, that's the way it went. And, my story is not one where, my dad was an alcoholic and he beat my mother and things like that. I was incredibly fortunate to have great parents that taught us the value of family, of caring for each other, of loving each other, of supporting each other. And that's part of why I do what I do now. Can I make a difference in the world? Is today going to be a good day because I'm able to tell my story and hopefully it has a positive impact on other people? It's been a great life despite the 10-year battle with cancer, but I've learned quite a bit through it.
Absolutely amazing. Wow, wow, wow. As I talked a little bit a second ago on what we're trying to talk about here is how people can identify where they're at in life and they think they have an obstacle to overcome or they have to get back on track. But, first thing they have to do is what we always talk about is identify their starting line. What is their starting line, right? And getting that ball rolling from there. I think before they can do that, one of the things I think you talk about is embracing the difficulties in life and the struggles you have, because if you can't identify those, you really have no starting line. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
Bad things are going to happen to us in life. Nobody goes through, life unscathed, but, our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. So to the brain, the way things are right now, the status quo is comfortable and familiar. and should just be left alone. But the problem with that is the only way we are going to grow, the only way we're going to get better, the only way we're going to improve is to step outside those comfort zones and do the things that we don't like to do the things that make us uncomfortable. And I try to do this every day of my life. And I certainly recommend it to everybody I talk with. Do just one thing that makes you nervous, that scares you, that makes you uncomfortable, that's potentially embarrassing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But if you do those small things every day, when the big disasters in life hit us, we, lose our job, somebody close to us passes away, we find out we have a terminal or chronic illness, you'll be so much more resilient to handle those things if you do those things every day that make you uncomfortable. And there's that old saying about, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. Suffering is what you do with that pain. Do you take it? Do you use it to make you a stronger and more determined individual? Or do you wallow in it and feel sorry for yourself and want other people to feel sorry for you? I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, you're looking at me right now. There's no S on my chest. I don't have a cape and fly around with magical powers. I'm still being treated for cancer. I get down. I feel sorry for myself. I cry and things like that. But what I've realized is the importance of the need to keep moving forward despite how lousy you feel.
I always think of like your support system, be it immediate family, be it community, whatever. How does that relate to, when you, face adversity? Is it something it was a collaborative effort from the get go, or is it something you were on your own for a while and then suddenly realized, I can't do this on my own? I need to bring other people in. Or if you were to tell somebody that's just learning about some things in their life right now, how would you advise them on their support system?
I always talk about what's gotten me, certainly through these last 10, almost 11 years now with cancer, is what I call my three F's, and that's faith, family, and friends. I have a very strong faith life. I don't put that on anybody else. But you talked a minute ago about obstacles and facing obstacles and things like that. We're great in this country, especially of starting down the road toward a goal and an obstacle gets in our way and we can't get over it. We can't get around it. We can't get through it. So we quit, but we just don't quit. Now we got to blame somebody. We got to blame our parents or our station in life or, our boss or something like that. Very few people take personal responsibility for their own success and happiness. And I remember, when I got cancer, people were like, well, who do you blame? It's like, what do you mean? Who do I blame? It's like, well, you have to blame somebody because you got cancer. I said, no, I don't blame anybody. And then when they find out I have a faith life, they're like, well, you must blame God. And I sort of joke with them. I'm like, no, I don't think God got up on a Tuesday morning, checked his to-do list and said, hey, Terry Tucker cancer today. I don't think that at all. But I do believe that God has given me the strength to go through that. And then the next one is family. And, it's just my wife and daughter and I. I do have two brothers still back in Chicago, and my mother's in her late 80s, is still here as well. But I remember when I had my leg amputated, my doctor wanted to start me on chemotherapy. And I looked at him and I said, is it going to save my life? And he said, probably not, but it might buy you some more time. And I said, well, I was 8 years into this fight. I'm like, I don't know if I want to go through that if the outcome is going to be exactly the same, but I'll go home and talk to my family. And this is honestly the way it happened. It's really a funny story. So I get home and I start talking to my wife and daughter, and my daughter's immediately, all right, we need a family meeting. I'm like, family meeting? There's three of us. It's not like we got a board here or something like that we need to, we need to talk to.
Send out a memo.
Exactly. So we sit around the kitchen table and individually talk about how we feel about me having chemotherapy. And then when we're done, my daughter's like, all right, let's take a vote. How many people want dad to have chemotherapy? And my wife and daughter raised their hand. I'm like, wait a minute. Am I getting outvoted for something that I don't want to do? But I remember back when I was in the police academy and our defensive tactics instructor used to have us bring a photograph of the people we loved the most to class. And as we were learning different ways to defend ourselves, we were to look at that photograph because he reasoned you will fight harder for the people you love than you will fight for yourself. So I ended up taking chemotherapy because I love my wife and daughter more than I love myself. And in hindsight, it was a bridge that got me to the clinical trial drug that I'm on now. So that's the family component of it. And then the friends component of it, incredibly important to me. But I'll tell you, you really find out who's going to be in the foxhole with you when you get some type of a terminal or a chronic illness, because there are people that I thought that would be there for me that were like, you know what, Terry, this isn't looking good. This scares me. I don't want to be part of this. I'm going to have to back away a little bit. And then there were people who I never thought would be in my corner, who have been there for me since day one.
Yeah, I've actually experienced that. Unfortunately, I either have a close friend or a, relative that has been through the cancer fight, and I've just personally witnessed exactly what you're saying. They would come to me and be like, "Man, I so and so is not responding, not helping me out. I reached out to them. I really thought they'd be there for me." And I'm like, yeah, not for a second, I not sure what to say. And I'd be like, well, listen, whatever you need, I'm here for you. Any research I can help you do, whatever I can do to help you out, I'm there. That's so funny you mentioned it. Just recently, I experienced that, and that's a tough spot. That's a tough spot. As we're talking, Marty and I always preach mindset, right? This our show is all about habits and mindset. If you're talking with somebody and they're facing some life issues or whatever the case may be, and again, they don't know how to take that initial step, what would you say to them about mindset? Like, how do you shift from, you found success, you've got the great job, you have the family, but you've never had to worry about your health. Now you do. You know, how do you address that and get them into a mindset of doing what's necessary to live a healthier lifestyle?
The longer I go in this cancer fight, the more I realize that, at least for me, and again, I'm not talking about somebody with a mental illness or something like that, but at least some type of physical illness, it starts with the mind. How you handle this absolutely positively starts with the mind. I always tell people, be incredibly careful how you talk to yourself. We all talk to ourselves, whether we like to admit it or not. We all have this sort of self-talk. But if you're constantly, oh man, I'm in a bad situation, or I might die, or this is terrible, all you're doing is reinforcing in your mind how bad your desire is. And I kind of go back to, like, I'll just give you an example from my basketball days. The same part of your brain that would light up when you were practicing, say, shooting free throws, is the same part of your brain that lights up when you think about practicing free throws. So you need to be really careful how you talk to yourself, because we all become what we think. And I understand we're human beings. We are going to have negative thoughts. Like I said, there are days when, I get down, when I feel sorry for myself and things like that. And I think a couple things. There's two stories that really kind of I always think of that pull me through those dark days. One is about a professor at Johns Hopkins University back in the 1950s who did a study with rats. And he took rats and he put them in a tank of water that was over their head. And he wanted to see how long the average rat would tread water. And the average rat treaded water for about 15 minutes. And just as the rats were getting ready to sink and drown, he reached in, grabbed them, pulled them out, dried them off, and let them rest for a while. And then he took those exact same rats and put them back in that exact same tank of water. And the second time around, on average, those rats treaded water for 60 hours. So think about that. The first time, 15 minutes, you're just not going to fail or you're not be successful. You're going to die. Your life is going to be over. The second time around, 60 hours, which said to me two things. The number one, the importance of hope in our lives, that we have to believe, maybe not this week, maybe not next month, maybe not even next year, but at some point in time, our lives are going to get better. And then secondly, knowing that just how much more our physical bodies can handle than we ever thought they could. I think everybody has a breaking point, but that breaking point is so much further down the road than we ever give ourselves credit for. And then the second story kind of dovetails with that. I have a friend of mine who my wife works with, who's a former Navy SEAL, and he calls me on my off weeks of treatment just to check in on me. And sometimes we talk about what the SEALs call their 40% rule, which basically says that if you're at the end of your rope, if you're done, if you can't go on, you're only at 40% of your maximum, and you still have another 60% left to give to yourself. So the mind is incredibly important because it all starts in the mind. If you can control the mind, you can control your physical body.
I'm going to bring you back a little bit earlier. So, something you said earlier, and then I want to come back to this. So, what you said earlier was that you every day you want to do something that is either hard, makes you scared, makes you embarrassed, something like that. And when you said that, my first reaction was, hell no, I don't want to do that. The second reaction was like, oh, well, maybe I was going to bargain with myself. Like, oh, well, like maybe he means like going to yoga or something. Like I'd like to do like heavy weights. So like, I don't usually go to yoga. So maybe going to yoga might be like, like, can you give us a better idea? Because when you say something, hard, that means different things to different people. And can you give us a couple of like examples of what is a hard, embarrassing, scary thing that you've done in the last 2 or 3 days?
I hate, hate, capital HATE, going to the dentist. Can't stand it. Yesterday, I picked up the phone, called the dentist, made my 6-month dental appointment. Now you think, oh, that's not a big deal. When you hate the dentist as much as I do, yes, that is an absolutely that's a scary thing for me to do. And like I said, these things don't have to be, I'm going to go play chicken with a car out in the street or something like that. This isn't anything like that. This is what's one thing that makes you uncomfortable. It's like, okay, I really got to put my prosthetic leg on today. I'm really not up for that. I'm tired. I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do it. It's an uncomfortable thing that I don't want to do. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. What is uncomfortable for me may not be uncomfortable for you. You have to figure out what those small things are. Find one thing every day and do it. Because, like I said, when those big disasters in life hit us and they hit all of us, you'll be so much more resilient to handle those things when they come around.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that, and thank you for giving us an example. I feel your pain literally with respect to the dentist. Yeah. So now tomorrow I'm going to have to call my dentist.
There you go.
Thanks
Yeah.
for that. I really appreciate that.
You can blame me. There you go.
What I'd like to come back to, because I'm familiar with the experiment that you were talking about with respect to the rats, and it's really it's an amazing concept because you're completely right. It's all about hope, or in some sense, learned helplessness, right? So if you believe that you are helpless, well, then it certainly makes sense to just give up, right? And so in life, lots of people believe that they have learned that they are helpless. And people, when they are given hope, can do extraordinary things, right? So part of what they are trying to tell the SEALs, when you think you've given up, everything, you've got 60% more, you're only at 40, that's giving them hope. Oh, I can do it, right? Even though I don't see a way, I don't feel like I can do it. They're giving those guys hope, right? So I'm not personally. I am not a super spiritual person. I maybe have like some beliefs in karma and things like that, but I'm not a go to church guy. So outside of that, what do you attribute your sense of hope, that positive self-talk, which I totally get. I agree 100% with the importance of positive self-talk and the belief that over the long term, if I do the right things, good things are going to happen. Where do you get that sense from?
I think part of it is from my upbringing. I mean, I was raised Catholic. I'm still Catholic. I still go to church as often as I possibly can, sometimes every day. I look at my circumstances and I look at the number of times over these last 10 years that I literally should be dead. I had my oncologist show me about 6 months ago the CAT scan from my days when I had my leg amputated, and I found out I had these tumors in my lungs. And I had fluid all around the pleural spaces of my lungs. I had these big tumors in my lung. I was coughing up this, green bloody phlegm and all that kind of stuff. And I looked at him and I was like, how was I alive? And he kind of got this smirk on his face and he sort of shook his head and he's like, I have no idea, because you shouldn't have been. Which said to me through my faith that God's not done with me yet. That I'm still here for a reason. I mentioned I'm on a clinical trial drug now. I was on it with two other people, they both died last year. Why didn't I die? Why am I still here? And, they're not, and things like that. I just have a tremendous belief, a feeling. It's faith, for lack of a better word. I can't describe it. I can't say, what, right there is God. But the way I kind of look at life now is a little bit different. We all tend to, when we graduate from high school or college or grad school or law school or whatever, we get out of the military, we then start, okay, now I've got to start to fill myself up. I've got to get a job. I've got to get money. I've got to drive a car. I've got to do, and we fill ourselves up. What if it was just the opposite? What if instead of starting empty and we now have to fill ourselves up, what if we're born full and our job is to pour ourselves out for the betterment of ourselves, our family, our fellow man, and things like that? It's kind of a different way of looking at life because we're all kind of conditioned to, I got to get stuff. When I get stuff, I fill myself up and I feel good about myself. My feeling is, as I'm probably coming to the end of my life, that I'm not filling myself up. I'm emptying myself out. I'll give you just a quick story to end this. I had a nurse recently ask me what it was like to have my foot amputated and my leg amputated. And I told her, I said, it's not been easy. I'm still learning how to walk again. When you're 6'8", falling is not a good thing. And that, so I'm still learning how to do that. But what I told her was, cancer can take all my physical faculties, but cancer can't touch my mind. It can't touch my heart, and it can't touch my soul. It goes back to the Jim Valvano speech, at the ESPYs, but that's who I am. That's who Lonnie is. That's who you are, Marty. That's who, John is. That's who everybody who's listening to us is. That's who we really are. And don't get me wrong, I spent a lot of time working on my physical body, although if you look at it right now, it's not good. But, but really who we are, our heart, our mind, and our soul, why don't we spend more time working on that instead of worrying, hey, is this latest haircut look good on me? Or, hey, is that tie good for whatever? And that. So I think it's just a different way of looking at it. And I honestly believe for me, it's all about faith.
That's amazing. I love that. And listen, whether or not how you look or not, your energy is captivating, and a lot of that comes from your taking care of yourself spiritually, mindfulness. We could tap in a little bit about what you eat later if you'd like, but just back to that mindset. To touch on that, people always ask me like where and why and how. I said first, again, you got to start. I use that. How do you define success? What is your benchmark for success? You just touched on, you know, the material things, put that out there. Is it where you are with your career, your job, right? Or your financial, you know, uh, what does that look like? No, I think when you have to kind of reverse engineer and start with redefining what success means to you. Do you like to wake up, with less stress? Do you like to wake up and have energy? Because once you start there, everything else in life kind of falls into place. You treat people nicer, they're going to treat you nicer. You're going to be more productive at work, things of that nature. So I think when you define success as just being happier, having more energy, and then creating ways to build on that foundation, everything else takes care of itself.
I would agree. I will give you the best definition of success that I've ever heard in my life. And it comes from John Wooden, the basketball coach at UCLA when I was a little kid. And, probably at the time, one of the most successful coaches, in any sport, certainly in college basketball. And Wooden defines success this way: success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self satisfaction in knowing that you did the best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. Doesn't say anything about winning. It doesn't say anything about, getting money or getting stuff or anything like that. Do you have peace of mind knowing that you did the best to become the best you're capable of becoming? And if that's the case, nobody can ask anything more of you. I've done my best. I've given it my all. I've laid it out there. For me as an athlete, as a basketball, I've left it all on the court. And whether we won or lost on the scoreboard, that really wasn't the measure of our success. May have been, yeah, we lost the game, but did you give everything you had? If you did, then you've been successful today.
it's a life lesson for especially younger people today that are still, they went to college or they got certified in something, but for some reason they're just not finding success. They try to, blame external forces when they just got to make sure they're looking within themselves to do everything they could possibly do. And if they do that, I really think everything else will take care of itself.
Absolutely.
I think John Wooden would have had a very difficult time in today's social media society where people compare themselves to everyone else all the time, because that's clearly just comparing yourself to what can you do? What are you capable of? If you believe that you have done everything to prepare, if you have given everything, then you should be very comfortable alone with your thoughts right before going to sleep. Right? I mean that's a good day for me. I know, hey, if it takes me about 30 seconds to fall asleep because I don't really have any thoughts that I need to go through, right? That's a good day. I've had a really good day.
It really is. And when you were saying that, I was thinking that I just finished Steve Magnus's book called Doing Hard Things. And talks about that. For those of you who don't know who Steve Magnus is, he was an elite runner when he was a kid. He almost made the US Olympic team, but he was the track and field coach at the University of Minnesota. And he writes this book and he tells a story in the book about this guy that did a study. He said he put mostly younger people into a room that had nothing in the room but a chair and a table. They were not allowed to take in their devices. They were there alone with themselves. The only other thing in the room was a buzzer. And if you hit the buzzer, you got an electric shock. 67% of the men and 25% of the women that went through this test shocked themselves, including one man who shocked himself every 5 seconds. And you have to laugh at that, but what that says is, can you be alone with yourself? Can you be alone with your thoughts? Are the stressors and things? And that's another thing I've started to do since reading that book. I spend, 5 to 10 minutes just being alone. I don't care where my mind goes. I'm not meditating or anything like that. I'm just being alone with me. No devices, no phones, no iPads, no nothing. I'm just sitting in a chair in my room and being alone with myself. And what that says to me is so many people can't do that. They can't be alone. They need the distraction of something else because they're just not comfortable in their own skin.
Yeah, the fear and pain of being alone with their own thoughts is greater than the pain of being giving yourself electric shocks.
Yeah,
That's
that's crazy.
yeah, it's frightening, right? It's frightening that some people have that afraid of their thoughts, right? So that's a, I feel badly, and that's something that, you know, everybody has bad thoughts. To your point, we all have bad thoughts, right? I mean, we have to fight those bad thoughts when we get them. We can't help the fact that the thought comes in our brain, but we can sure as hell fight it once it gets there. Like get rid of it. Yeah.
Yeah. How can we compartmentalize it and deal with it in our own ways? Everybody has their own way of doing that. And those that don't do it and let it just bottle up and fester, those are usually the ones that kind of explode somehow on their loved ones, which is a shame. Well, Terry, listen, I know we're taking up a lot of your time. Why don't, if you could, take a second to talk about your book and what you're hoping people to get out of it. And we're going to have a link. And if you'd like to check out his website, motivationalcheck.com, it's going to be in the show notes down at the bottom of the page. But yeah, Terry, if you want to talk a little bit about your book, take it away.
Sure. So the book is called Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. And it was really a book born out of two conversations I had. One was with a former player that I had coached in high school who had moved to Colorado near where my wife and I live with her fiance. And the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her, I'm really excited that you're living close and I can watch you find and live your purpose. She got real quiet for a while. And then she looked at me and she said, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is? I said, I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Find the reason you were put on the face of this earth, use your unique gifts and talents, and live that reason. So that was one conversation. And then I had a young man reach out to me who was in college on social media. And he said, what do you think are the most important things I should learn to be not just successful in my job or in business, but to be successful in life? And I didn't want to give him the, get up early, work hard, help others. Not that those aren't important. Those are incredibly important. But I wanted to see if I could go a little bit deeper with him So I took some time and was walking around with a pad of paper and pencil, and I had these notes, these 10 ideas, these 10 thoughts, these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I kind of stepped back and I was like, I got a life story that fits underneath that principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates that principle. So during the 3 to 4 months that I was healing after I had my leg amputated, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories, and they're real stories about real people underneath each of the principles. And that's how sustainable excellence came to be.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, listen, I think we got a lot of really good stuff here. Marty, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, no, well, you know what? I do have one. So I can't let you go without asking, how did you become an FBI hostage negotiator? Like, what do you have to do? Like, it doesn't see that seems like it came out of nowhere.
So I wasn't an FBI negotiator. I was on the Cincinnati Police SWAT team, and SWAT is divided up usually on most SWAT teams on the tactical team. Those are the men and women with all the toys and the guns and all that kind of stuff, and the negotiators. And so Cincinnati had an opening for a negotiator. I put in for it. Became a negotiator. I did train with the FBI's hostage negotiation team. We worked with the psychologist and basically did scenario based training about we would do stuff and then we would debrief. Did you think about this? Maybe that person had schizophrenia and they were off their meds, or and we would go through all these different scenarios, and those things. Then, okay, 3 o'clock in the morning, some guy barricades himself in his house, with a gun, and either barricades himself or he's there with a hostage, and we have to talk him out. And or people would say, great job, you talked that guy out. In all honesty, what we really did was listen the guy out. And about 90% of the time we were successful. About 10% of the time, the people decided that they, weren't going back to prison or whatever it was, and they chose to end their life. But again, I never lost any sleep over that because I worked with great people. I had great training, and I knew I did the very best to try to get this thing to be resolved in a peaceful way. So, you do the best you can, but at the end of the day, it's really their decision on how this is going to end.
Wow, that's 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 a challenge. That is truly a test of, hey, did I do everything? Because you wouldn't want to go to sleep. You wouldn't want to go to that job if you had second thoughts about, well, gee, could I have done something that would be very, very difficult? So congratulations and thank you for that. That's that's I'm not sure I'd be willing to sign up for that.
There's a lot of nuances that go into it, Matt. When you think about as a police officer, about 99.9% of what you do is face to face with another individual. But as a negotiator, you're not with that person. So you have to figure things out based on what people are saying, what they're not saying, and how they're saying it. And it takes hours. I mean, usually it's a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hour process to get the person out safely. And you use things like how and what questions, and you engage the person in trying to help you get them out safely, even though they don't realize that that's what you're doing with them.
Well, thank you.
They're incredible. Yeah, I mean, Terry, truly, you're an inspiration, and can't thank you enough for joining us today. With that said, everybody, if you really liked this episode today, and you hopefully you're able to take something away, something that could give you some motivation, give you some knowledge to get your ball rolling, make sure you get on that track to living a healthier, well balanced lifestyle, then we've done our job. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel. If you like this episode, click like, share it with your friends, family, whatever you could do to help out. That'd be fantastic. If you want to learn more about Terry and his book, again, we're going to have a link to Amazon for his book in the show notes, and some more information for you to chew on. Okay. All right. Well, take care. We'll see you guys soon. Bye bye.